Discover the amazing moment a single dad CEO transformed a poor girl's blind date with two Coffe. Jack often felt the weight of his responsibilities push against him, a crushing force that came with the territory of being a single dad and the CEO of a fast-growing tech startup in Maplewood. At 42, he juggled board meetings and late-night projects while managing the often chaotic world of raising his spirited 16-year-old daughter, Emma. Deep down, Jack cherished the values of integrity and hard work that his late father instilled in him, but the stress of meeting his own expectations sometimes left him feeling like a pretender. Today, Emma's bright eyes shone with a new idea, one that clawed at his already frayed nerves. "Dad, can we help Lily?" she asked, her voice hopeful yet delicate. The shy girl from her school had a blind date with two boys but was terrified of embarrassing herself. Jack hesitated, struggling with the absurdity of getting involved in teenage social dramas, especially as he was acutely aware of the pressures that came with adolescent interactions. Was he really the man for the job? As the conversation unfolded, Jack's mind raced. What did he know about navigating the teenage dating landscape? He questioned his capability, his hesitation tightening around his chest like a noose. Yet, Emma's empathy touched something deep within him. He knew Lily deserved a fair chance, and perhaps, through helping her, he could inspire confidence in both girls. But that desire sparked an internal conflict. Did he want to teach Emma the value of empowerment, or was this a misguided attempt to showcase his abilities outside the corporate boardroom? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jack reluctantly agreed to help Emma, but as he shouldered the task, he uncovered a harsh contrast. Lily's family struggled financially, complicating her insecurities in their affluent school setting. This realization weighed heavily on him. For the first time, Jack felt disarmed by the stark reality of someone else's misfortune. He believed in lifting others, but he found himself struggling with feelings of discomfort and invalidation. How could he ensure Lily would feel confident and capable? Would his own privilege overshadow the moment? The night of the blind date arrived, a cocktail of excitement and dread bubbling within him. Jack orchestrated the coffee shop environment, determined to shield Lily's hopeful yet fragile spirit from potential disappointments. As he watched eager teens, social norms twisted into knots around him, he braced for the uncomfortable turbulence that always lurked in such scenarios. Then, chaos erupted. One boy didn't show, while the other's dismissive laughter rang out, shattering the delicate atmosphere Jack had crafted. The sight of Lily's crushed expectations sent a wave of anguish through him, revealing deeper layers to his conflict. He confronted the boys, but more than that, he faced his own biases. Wealth didn't dictate character. How had he allowed it to mask his empathy? Caught in this moral dilemma, Jack outweighed personal integrity against the pragmatic need for acceptance. As emotions spiraled, tension coiled tighter. He witnessed fear and resilience intertwining. Lily's true self remained shrouded in the shadows, and Jack finally confronted the question that had simmered beneath his surface. Could he help Lily without imposing his own version of success? His heart raced as the night unfolded, teetering on the brink of a revelation that could change everything for all of them. Jack's mind was a whirlwind the moment he sensed the aftermath of the blind date unraveling. He stood there in the coffee shop, a bystander to the humiliation Lily faced, his protective instincts urging him to intervene. As he confronted the boys, Jack's own insecurities bubbled to the surface. His confidence as a CEO felt worlds apart from the teenager's turmoil before him. How did one translate competence in a conference room to grace under pressure in a social setting? He could see Lily's disappointment written across her face, the weight of her dashed hopes almost suffocating. He had wanted to uplift her, empower her, but instead, he felt impotent. Was he not entitled to use his life's lessons to create a moment of positivity? Yet here he was, feeling more like an intruder than a mentor. Jack's eyes settled on Emma, whose disappointment mirrored Lily's yet held a flicker of compassion. This was far more than just a blind date, it became an intricate web of human interaction laden with emotional stakes. In his heart, Jack grappled with a profound realization: true empowerment wasn't about orchestrating favorable outcomes but fostering resilience through authentic connection. As the boys left, leaving behind a fragmented illusion of success, Jack turned to Lily. What did she need from him at that moment? Words? Encouragement? Or maybe just the acknowledgement that her feelings were valid? His authority, built in the world of apps and algorithms, felt hollow now. He took a breath, grounding himself in the authenticity he craved to share. Lily, he began, his voice steady yet soft, I know it's disappointing. It's easy to feel like everything boils down to moments like these, but remember, they don't define your worth. The words sprang from a deep well of understanding he had gained during his years of climbing the corporate ladder, often facing rejection and the crushing weight of expectations. Lily, eyes shimmering with moisture, met his gaze. There was a vulnerability that flickered with something more, an ember of hope. Jack realized he wasn't just delivering a cliché. He was framing a pivotal connection for her, a model of resilience only forged through trial. For the first time, Jack found a thread of purpose weaving through his own chaos, a revelation that his success in business could translate into real-life mentorship. Perhaps it was his privilege that inspired him to act, perhaps it was the desperation to ensure no other girl left a moment feeling like a failure. Returning home later, he reflected on the contrasting realms of his life. In the tech world, he used metrics and analytics to derive success, but here, the intricacies of human connection were far more complex. Yet, this engagement stirred a dormant spark within him, a desire to become more actively involved in shaping the lives of young individuals like Lily and, in turn, recalibrating his relationship with Emma. The days passed, and the fallout of that evening lingered with Jack. He felt compelled to create something that transcended his daily grind, something that fostered discussion, support, and reflection. What if he could harness the same energy he applied to building his company and channel it into supporting the development of teenagers in his community? The clock kept pace with his thoughts, propelling him toward an idea he had never considered: a program, a mentoring initiative for teens in Maplewood. As he juggled balancing this new venture with his relentless demands at work, a gnawing doubt crept in. Could he genuinely make a difference? The moment had arrived. A decision loomed on the horizon. He would either step forward into this unknown realm or retreat, clinging to the comfort of his professional life. The weight of the world rested on this one impulse as he prepared to embrace a path that could alter not only others but also redefine himself. But first, he needed to confront the ultimate question: were his capabilities as a father and a CEO enough to drive his vision forward, or would he falter, like the boy who had abandoned Lily on her blind date? The next morning, Jack awoke with a sense of urgency pulsing through his veins. The idea of a mentoring program took root, and he could almost feel the contours of it shaping in his mind. He leaned against the kitchen island, surveying the scattered papers of his daily to-do list. The contrast felt stark. How could he reconcile the numbers and analytics with this emotional territory, which perplexed him so deeply? Every instinct urged him to approach the initiative scientifically, to draft a business plan that mirrored corporate practice. Yet, every time he envisioned the program, he saw Lily's dampened spirit, the flicker of hope he had ignited in her, like a small flame in the darkness. Not a business strategy but human connection informed his pursuit. Wouldn't it be more meaningful to structure his approach around genuine interaction rather than profit margins? Determined, he grabbed a notepad and jotted down ideas: mentorship sessions, workshops focusing on self-esteem, perhaps even fostering an environment where students learn to express their feelings without fear of judgment. But deep within, a shadow of self-doubt lingered, whispering that he was unprepared. What did he truly know about mentoring teenagers in a world so vastly different from his own? As the day unfolded, Jack attended back-to-back meetings, but his mind drifted. He noticed himself constantly re-evaluating how he interacted with his colleagues. Was he demonstrating the same authenticity he aimed to promote with the teens? He felt the familiar walls of corporate jargon closing in, suffocating that emerging connection. Later, he received a text from Emma, a lunch invitation at their usual spot. The request was simple, yet he sensed an undercurrent of tension. Their relationship had been strained lately. He was aware of her frustration over his emotional distance. He took a breath, feeling the mounting pressure to be more than just a CEO. He needed to be a father and a partner, too. During lunch, Jack leaned into the conversation, craving honesty. As they navigated casual topics, he felt the shift within himself, contemplating the vulnerability he had experienced with Lily just days before. Emma, he ventured, I've been thinking about starting a mentoring program for teens in our community. Emma regarded him thoughtfully, her brow furrowing. You want to mentor kids? The incredulity in her voice stung. But you've never done anything like that before. His defenses began to rise, but he pushed forward. Exactly what if I'm not supposed to have it all figured out? Maybe we learn as we go. Isn't that how meaningful connections are built? The truth weighed heavily in Jack's heart. He feared this conversation reflected a personal reckoning, drawing from his uncoil of insecurities as both a father and a man struggling to evolve. Something must have resonated with her, though, as she took a deep breath, her expression softening. Jack, I admire your passion, but you need to plan this out. Think about how you will relate to these kids. What do you know about their experiences? The raw honesty stung sharply. Did he have the right to lead? His experiences in the boardroom felt trivial compared to the raw emotional honesty of adolescence. The notion of sitting across from teenagers, helping them navigate their struggles, unfolded like an open wound, fraught with fear and yet brimming with possibility. That night, Jack searched for resources. Books, articles, even TED Talks about mentorship flooded his screen. He absorbed stories of others who walked this path, their triumphs fueled by vulnerability, creativity, and unwavering commitment. Each click expanded his resolve, and he felt a shift. The familiar doubts morphed into a burgeoning desire for connection beyond the corporate walls. Before he slept, he sat down on the living room floor, crafting the first draft of his program outline. His emotions flickered between exhilaration and terror, but he was determined. The seed of inspiration had taken root. It beckoned him to reshape his identity. Yet, a haunting question clung to him: how do you begin to guide others when you aren't even sure you can lead yourself? As he closed his eyes, the intensity of that uncertainty overshadowed his achievement, and the journey ahead loomed vast and uncharted. His resolve solidified as he prepared to dive deeper into this endeavor, but the stakes were real. When morning approached, and he faced the dawn's possibilities, he knew the first mentor he must confront was himself. Would he rise to the challenge, or would he retreat into a comfort forged from the insecurities that had haunted him since childhood? The moment had arrived. The resolve to step into a world that could redefine him awaited just beyond his horizon. The next step would test everything he had built to this point and challenge the very core of his identity. Before the sun fully crested the horizon, Jack felt an unfamiliar clarity. He pulled on his worn sneakers and headed outside, letting the cool morning air prick at his skin. The rhythmic sound of his footsteps against the pavement echoed in his ears, each stride seemingly grounding him deeper into his purpose. This day would be different. He had resolved to confront not just his program but the essence of who he was becoming. As he raced through the neighborhood, his mind drifted to the myriad of Chinese boxes called mentorship that he was eager to unwrap. The possibilities of individual connections, the growth, the learning curves that electrified him. Yet, a nagging thought continued to echo in his mind: what made him a credible leader? The question loomed larger than he had anticipated. Returning home, he grabbed his notepad and sketched out a brainstorming session he would conduct with a group of colleagues later that week. To fortify his plan, he needed to elicit their feedback first. They were an experienced team, after all, and their insight could sharpen his approach. But he was painfully aware that these would be conversations rife with vulnerability, revealing gaps in his expertise. Jack's fingers hesitated over the page, unsure whether to focus on its logistical facets or the connection he hoped to foster. It felt impossible to blend operational methods with emotional resonance effectively. He remembered the chilling look in Emma's eyes when she challenged his capability, and for a moment, doubt clouded his enthusiasm again. Was he cutting corners by not being upfront about his own inadequacies? Determined, he penned down a line in bold letters: embrace the authenticity of struggle. It wasn't just for the program, it was for him as well. His unease was part of the human experience, something he could share. This thought invigorated him as he envisioned walking alongside the teenagers, modeling the vulnerability he so desperately wanted to teach. A flurry of ideas filled the page, workshops not only dedicated to mentorship but also sessions allowing kids to confront their own vulnerabilities. He scribbled down ideas about art therapy, music as a storytelling medium, and face-to-face conversations that would draw out their hidden fears like roots struggling beneath the earth. He felt a breathtaking rush of passion, but with it came the realization that planning these sessions meant he would have to dig deep into his own past, unearthing his own vulnerabilities. Despite the rising inspiration, nerves knotted in his gut. The corporate atmosphere conditioned him to button emotions up and adhere to a polished facade. What if he failed to connect with them? What if instead of inspiring them, he merely exposed his own inadequacies? The stakes grew heavier the longer he wrestled with it. Staring at the unmarked calendar for the upcoming mentorship meetings, it hit him: in order to guide others, he must first open that door himself, allowing not only for his frailties to show but encouraging those children to do the same. That afternoon, Jack called for a meeting with his trusted colleagues. As they gathered around the conference table, he sensed the traditional ritual of business forming like a protective shield. He had to break it. He took a deep breath, feeling a crucial shift as vulnerability flooded through him like an electric charge. "Look, I've been doing a lot of thinking about something important," he began, surprised by the tremor in his voice. "I want us to help build a mentoring program for teens in our community, but I don't think I can do it in a vacuum. I need your input, your criticisms." He paused, eyes drifting to each one. "I know this is outside of our wheelhouse, but we can make a real difference, and I want all of you to push back on me." The initial silence hung heavily in the air, a canvas upon which he felt he might crumple. Yet, as his colleagues began to respond, their reactions sparked discussions that were surprisingly candid. They critiqued his ideas, adding layers he hadn't considered, allowing him to confront both the excitement of shared vision and his own fears of inadequacy. By the end of that meeting, Jack realized he had not only started to build a collaborative program but was reshaping his own identity alongside his peers. The point of connection had never been clearer. He was not merely a CEO, standing apart, but a partner in the journey into visible uncertainty. As Jack left the office that evening, the prospect of further conversations with Lily and the teens loomed ahead. This transformative experience was just beginning, a tumultuous dance through doubt and discovery. The only question that remained was how he would confront the next emotional hurdle, those teenagers waiting for him to provide something substantial. Could he truly become the mentor they needed? The moment was approaching, and he could feel it, a raw challenge that might reshape not just them, but him. Jack's anticipation for the upcoming mentorship sessions grew heavier with each day, like clouds pregnant with rain, ready to unleash transformative storms. He found himself rehearsing conversations in the mirror, questioning how he could connect with teenagers whose struggles seemed light years apart from his own polished corporate life. His first planned session loomed on the horizon, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to stand on a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown. He meticulously arranged the logistics, finding a welcoming space that felt alive, gathering art supplies for therapeutic expression. Yet, every detail also revealed layers of his own anxiety. Would he be enough? Could shared vulnerability dismantle the barriers he perceived between them? The night before their first meeting, Jack lay awake, thoughts spiraling amidst the shadows in his mind. Images of the adolescent faces he'd seen at the community center, filled with uncertainty and hunger for affirmation, stood as stark reminders of vulnerable youth that deserved guidance. But in the dead of night, his resolve floundered under the weight of doubt. He recalled the very essence of mentorship: support, understanding, connection. Could he embody those attributes, or would he merely project hypocrisy, failing to capture authenticity? Morning light filtered through his blinds, and with it came a subtle sense of renewed urgency. He wrestled with the stark realization that he didn't need the perfect solution, he just needed to be present. That would be the true gift he could offer. As he approached the community center later that morning, he noticed a group of unfamiliar faces loitering outside. They looked lost, timid, yet undeniably eager, the unknown awaiting to be discovered within his reach. With a beating heart, he stepped inside, the smell of fresh paint mixing with nervous energy as he set the stage for the first interaction. Walking into the room, he saw the anxious expressions of teenagers flit about as they settled into mismatched chairs, each lost in their own spiral of thoughts. This was his moment. He swallowed hard, gathering his thoughts before the class began. "Hey everyone," he opened, trying to infuse warmth into his voice. "I'm Jack. I was once like you, confused and searching for connections that felt real. Today, let us break down some barriers together." He initiated with an icebreaker, a simple game meant to draw smiles and laughter, like a first step into a fearful jump into the unknown. Laughter broke out, tentative at first, melting into genuine enjoyment as walls began to crumble, revealing glimpses of personality and interest surfacing from beneath guarded exteriors. Having laid the groundwork of comfort, Jack prompted a heartfelt dialogue around challenges and fears. It unfolded slowly, but with each story, the atmosphere shifted, hesitation became action, a fragile trust began forming in the air. Yet, in the midst of these acknowledgement moments, he felt an old wound reawakening. The uncomfortable silence around his own vulnerabilities began creeping back in. Just as he sought to maintain this precious connection, Lily, a quiet girl with sad eyes, spoke up. "What if sharing just makes it worse? What if people think less of you?" Her question hung in the air, ricocheting through the room. Jack's heart raced. This was an opportunity to dive deeper, to confront his own fears right in that moment. "Lily, that's an important question. I worry about being seen as less too. But I've come to realize that vulnerability breeds strength. It shows we're human, we all have struggles." As the discussion evolved, he wondered if he could truly show himself to the group. Would they respect him or mock him? Was he prepared to bear the cracks of his own past? The journey was surrendering him to emotional depths he had neglected for too long. An hour slipped away in a blur of shared anecdotes, laughter, and understanding. As they connected, Jack silenced his inner critic, realizing he had begun to model the very authenticity he sought to inspire. With the ability to embrace his failures alongside their growing camaraderie, Jack shifted gears. Could this simple honesty elevate him from being just a mentor to being a catalyst for transformation? As he wrapped up the session, he caught Lily's eye. For the first time, she smiled slightly, a glimmer of hope surfacing through her sadness, a flicker of recognition that opened a door for the possibility of change. As he packed up for the day, Jack felt the emotional tensions began to unravel within himself. But it wasn't until he stepped outside and inhaled the cool, fresh air that he realized this was only just the beginning. Ahead lay another session, another opportunity to evolve, not just for them, but for him too. Tomorrow's challenge loomed large. How would he navigate even deeper vulnerabilities with a group that hadn't fully opened up yet, and could he lead them to discover the greatness that resided within? As Jack prepared for the second session, he felt an urgency accompanied by the unease of uncertainty tightening in his chest. He knew they had taken a step forward during their first meeting, but how could he ensure they continued to venture deeper into their emotional landscapes? The laughter and shared moments had been uplifting, but today, he sensed a greater task lay ahead. He arrived at the space a little earlier, hoping the quiet would grant him time to collect his thoughts. Surrounding him was a whirlwind of vivid colors. Posters displayed vibrant depictions of local art, community messages shining through artistic representations of hope and resilience. Yet, within this creative setting, Jack's mind buzzed with unresolved questions. Did he possess enough depth to respond to real pain? Would the group feel safe enough to dive into their struggles again? With meticulous precision, he set up the materials, a range of art supplies beside sheets of paper, ready to capture unspoken emotions and intricate experiences. He acknowledged a part of himself longing for simple, shallow exchanges, but he could not afford that now. The stakes were too high, these young people were trusting him. As the teenagers drifted in, familiarity began to bloom, though he sensed their collective trepidation. Lily, still bearing the weight of sadness, stepped inside, followed by a couple of curious friends, bringing both support and the potential for distraction. "Hey everyone," he greeted, opting for a slightly more confident tone this time. "I hope you're all ready to dig a little bit deeper today." Jack had a plan. He intended to revisit the theme of vulnerability, but now he wanted to introduce an exercise that would allow them to illustrate their emotions. He believed a visual representation of their internal world could offer them clarity and connection, a tangible piece of their complex feelings to share. "Let us create a piece of art together," he suggested. "Something that represents how you feel about yourself and your journey. No limits. You can use whatever speaks to you. If you feel stuck, we can share ideas." Skepticism flickered across a few faces. The thought of translating their inner struggles into colors and shapes was quite daunting. Jack inhaled slowly, feeling his energy ebb at their lack of enthusiasm. Yet, he recognized that fear often beckoned growth. "Art isn't about perfection," he reminded them, a gentle imperative infusing his voice. "It's about expression. What do you want to say?" Jack watched as hesitance morphed into curiosity. Lily picked up a paintbrush timidly but soon flew free, strokes of color reflecting her frustrations and dreams. Others followed suit, transforming personal vulnerabilities into blocks of vivid expression. The room filled with a hum of creation, brushes danced to the rhythm of excitement. Yet, beneath this creative fervor, Jack felt shadows return, moments of self-doubt and memories of struggles he had never fully confronted. It was as though the act of facilitating their self-exploration pushed him closer to the edge of his own unresolved conflicts. Could he unravel these threads from his past while guiding them? Finally, Jack decided to initiate a discussion around the artwork they created. He posed the question, "What does your piece say about you?" One by one, they began to share. Each story revealed layers of vulnerability that connected their experiences with the past. Hidden struggles began surfacing in an unexpected communion. Yet as the honesty flowed, so did Jack's realization. There were pieces of his own life woven together in storytelling. When it was Lily's turn, she surprised everyone with her intensity. "This is me," she said, pointing at her visual representation of a bird cage. "I feel trapped, like no one understands." Jack's breath caught, emotions stirring within him. The time had come to face the truth within himself, to align his experiences with their cries for connection. But could he muster the courage to peel back his layers? As he contemplated the precarious nature of the conversation unfolding, he understood that vulnerability had the potential to heal all parties involved. The challenge ahead loomed large. He needed to unravel his own threads, to reveal the parts of himself that mirrored their struggles, if he was to break down further barriers. "Can I share something too?" he ventured, feeling the potentials of honesty swell. "It's important for you to know you're not alone. I've faced my own cages." With a determination that coursed through him, he prepared to leap into his own story. Little did he know that this moment could either fortify the bonds between him and these teens or fracture the freshly minted trust they'd just begun to nurture. The room held its breath, caught in the poignant balance of anticipation and fear. Jack felt the weight of their gazes, each teenager eager yet hesitant for his reveal. This wasn't just a disclosure, it was a chance to expose his vulnerabilities in a way that could resonate with their own. He felt an overwhelming pulse of responsibility. If he faltered, would they retreat once more into silence? "I grew up feeling like I had to keep my feelings locked away," he began, his voice quaking slightly. "It felt like my emotions were a burden, and I didn't want to drag anyone down with me." His gaze flickered to Lily, who nodded faintly, her eyes searching for solidarity. As he spoke, memories surged, growing up in a home filled with unresolved tensions where expressing pain was seen as weakness. He recalled the way he'd hidden behind bravado, striving to be the strong one for everyone else. But the silence had been a cage of its own, much like the one Lily had painted. "I've had moments where I felt trapped, just like you," Jack continued, feeling both exposed and emboldened. "There were times I didn't know how to ask for help." The honesty poured out, raw and unscripted. Each word ignited a flicker of understanding in the room, weaving their experiences into a tapestry of shared vulnerability. As he delved deeper, Jack's own trepidation began to dissolve. This was not merely about revealing his past but about fostering an authentic connection. The prospect terrified him, yet he sensed the group shifting toward acceptance, mirroring his own journey of self-exploration. "This you see here," he gestured toward Lily's piece, "is an expression of feeling trapped. But it can also represent the start of breaking free. I learned that when I finally opened up, even just a little, I found that I wasn't alone. Sharing our burdens makes them lighter." The room, once heavy, now crackled with a newfound energy. Lily's eyes widened as if she had just cracked a window on a bright day, her own struggles illuminated by Jack's honesty. Others were beginning to shift in their seats, drawn to the idea that communication held power, a chance to find their voices. Jack knew this moment was pivotal, both for him and for them. He didn't hold all the answers, he was merely sharing a path he had stumbled upon, a path still strewn with uncertainties but also glimmering with hope. "I know it's not easy. But I encourage you to dig deeper, to ask yourselves what holds you back and what can help you grow," he challenged them, his resolve strengthening. The teenagers looked around, seeing each other not as individuals weighed down by isolation but as companions on shared journeys. In this space, Jack felt a shift within himself. He was not just a facilitator but a participant, wrestling with his own insecurities and successes as he prompted others to confront theirs. Each story shared became a stitch in the fabric of their communal understanding. As the session drew to a close, Jack realized not only were they cultivating trust within the group, but he was also forging a connection with his own past. A revelation dawned, a dynamic interplay of healing. He had not only extended a hand but accepted one in return. The conclusion ignited a spark of excitement within him. Jack sensed a hunger for more, a desire to push further. There were layers still veiled by shame and doubt, both in him and his students, that screamed to be explored. Next session, he declared, excitement bubbling. Let us delve into what it means to reclaim our narratives. We can explore how to transform our pain into purpose. But as he offered this possibility, an unsettling realization gripped him. Was he ready to confront the more difficult aspects of his past? Could he fully embrace this opportunity without getting lost in the darkness he feared? The thoughts churned in his mind as he prepared to part ways. In this pivotal moment, Jack stood on the precipice of personal discovery, teetering toward a deeper understanding of his own cages, uncertain yet ready to leap into the healing process that awaited both him and the teenagers who had opened their hearts alongside him. Little did he know, the next session held the potential to either illuminate the shadows or plunge him deeper into a darkness he had yet to confront. Jack approached the next session with a mixture of excitement and dread. The prospect of diving deeper into the mechanics of personal narratives beckoned to him, yet the weight of his own declarations lingered, casting doubt in shadowy corners of his mind. He gathered his notes while pacing in the small room, each step a rhythm of his heartbeat echoing a wrestling match between anticipation and anxiety. As his students began to filter in, he took a moment to observe them. They appeared more open, the tentative nature of their earlier reticence replaced by a palpable eagerness. It felt electric, sparking a flicker of hope within him. Yet, lurking underneath the surface was the question that consumed him: was he prepared to peel back layers he had buried for so long? Today, Jack started, gripping the podium tightly for balance. We'll explore how our stories intertwine with our identities. Each of us has experienced something that shapes who we are, but how often do we reclaim those narratives? How often do we allow our pain to define us instead of fueling our purpose? The teenagers exchanged glances, assessing the depth of the task ahead. And as he ventured into discussions about the art of storytelling, Jack felt challenged to apply the principle he preached. Every story they shared became a mirror reflecting his own struggles, the tumultuous journey from silence to self-expression. He encouraged them to write down pivotal moments from their pasts, events that had left enduring marks on their hearts and minds. As they scribbled and confided in each other, Jack marveled at the sheer intensity of their emotions, raw and unfiltered. Yet, amidst their confessions, his internal dialogue grew louder, battling against the memories he was determined to keep tucked away. The hours flowed, speech after speech unraveling in the space between breaths. Laughter and tears intermingled, threading hope into despair. Jack felt alive, as if he were witnessing the dawn of liberation in their collective consciousness. Yet, in the back of his mind, an echoing voice reminded him of the truths he hadn't yet dared to confront: his own obstacles, vulnerabilities, and the pain that still haunted him. Now, Jack said, feeling a shift in the atmosphere as the room quieted, let us discuss how we reclaim those stories. Not just for ourselves, but to create a narrative that shapes our future. He looked at each of them, but his gaze lingered on Lily. Her expression remained enigmatic, flickers of light dancing in her eyes as she eagerly scribbled thoughts. What narrative did she hold? What purpose begged to emerge from her pain? Suddenly, her hand shot up, determined to share. What if our pain is not just something to move past? What if it's part of who we are? The question hung heavy in the air, and something stirred within Jack. Could he embrace that notion for himself? The voice in his head grasped at his heart. How had he avoided this realization for so long? Exactly, Lily, he responded, but his voice faltered. Pain can guide us, transform us. But what happens when we let it overpower our narratives? Questions bled into his thoughts, opening up a flutter of realizations. He was riddled with his own narrative of pain that demanded acknowledgement. The session ended, buzzed with energy as students exchanged fleeting stories of their truths, light now emanating from shattered cages. Yet Jack remained anchored in a storm of introspection. Did his baggage serve a purpose? How could he articulate his struggle in a way that transformed rather than confined? As they packed up, an unsettling thought gripped him. While he had facilitated their conversations, he had yet to reveal his own narrative, a story worth sharing, but one that demanded vulnerability he had yet to embrace. The prospect dauntingly loomed before him. Stepping into the hallway, he felt the weight of their progress, yet an urgent query consumed him: was he truly ready to face the darker sides of his own tale in full view? The path to authenticity stretched wide and uncertain, and he understood that the moment for choice and confrontation was approaching fast. It was time to seek clarity. He could either face the unsettling shadows of his past or allow them to linger as haunting specters. As Jack stood just outside the room, contemplating his next move, he felt the convergence of fear and determination. The next session would not only demand his insight, it would require him to unearth and confront the very elements of himself he had avoided. Would he rise to the challenge, or would he retreat once again into the comforting embrace of silence? Jack entered the room, a heaviness in his chest that mirrored the anticipation mulling in the air. The students shuffled in, but their energy felt different today. They seemed to carry their stories like banners, ready to unveil their truths. As he stood before them, he knew it was the right moment, not just for them, but for himself, to confront the demons he kept hidden. Today, he began, his voice steadier than he felt, we're going to dig deeper. We've discussed how pain shapes our identity. Now, let us explore how embracing your past can become a source of strength. He paused, allowing his own words to resonate. Could he truly enter this territory, let down his defenses? He encouraged the students to break into small groups, sharing their pivotal moments while he roamed the classroom, half in their world and half in his own. The confessions poured forth disappointments, losses, and triumphs that painted a collage of their young lives. With every revelation, Jack felt an itch beneath his skin. Their courage to disclose felt like a spotlight, illuminating the corners of his memory he had so carefully avoided. He stopped by Lily's group, witnessing her articulate her struggles, her passion evident in every word. You can't just forget the pain, she insisted. It's part of who you are. Her voice resonated in Jack's mind, echoing the question he had shut out for too long. What if his pain was not just a burden to shed but a building block for something greater? Time slipped by unintentionally as he lost himself in the effort to connect the students' narratives with a thread of courage and resilience. Yet, as laughter erupted and emotional barriers fell, he felt a growing urgency within him, a call to action that demanded he confront his own hidden grief. Okay, everyone, Jack announced, drawing their attention back. Take a moment to reflect on what you've shared. What insights do you have that could speak to your future? The room dimmed as pens paused, faces tilting in contemplation. Jack closed his eyes for a brief moment, his thoughts spiraling into a multitude of questions. What insight could he possibly offer them if he never shared his whole truth? Let us share some breakthroughs, he encouraged, heart racing. The words came out before he could doubt himself, a small but significant stake in the ground, a commitment to transparency he knew was critical. When he asked a student to share their experience, a young man named Marcus took a bold step forward. I realized my storyline doesn't have to be defined by what has happened to me. I can create new pathways. Applause followed, and it fortified Jack's resolve. He could hear the truth in that statement. Why couldn't he seek new pathways? He took a deep breath, debating the approach. That's exactly it, Marcus. Your past informs you, but it doesn't dictate your future. We can reinterpret our narratives, he said, though internally he struggled to navigate his impending confession. Are you okay, Mr. Carter? Lily noticed the flicker of hesitation in his eyes. There it was, the cue, a golden opportunity. In that moment, he realized this was not about performance but authenticity. I think I have a few things to share too, Jack said, heart racing as he grappled with his vulnerability, each word both liberating and terrifying. The students settled back, their eyes wide with curiosity, and in that silence, he felt the weight of expectation pressing against him. With a steadying breath, he took a step toward the edge of his comfort zone. The very thing that had kept him from sharing had just transformed into a driving force. The truth is, he began deeply, some of my own pain clouds my narrative. I've avoided discussing my father's struggles with addiction and how that impacted me, how it still affects the way I see myself today. Abruptly, silence enveloped him. The vulnerability froze time for a moment, renewing fears he had long suppressed. By laying his struggle bare, had he crossed the line from teacher to exposed survivor? As Jack spoke, he caught Lily's gaze. Her eyes shone with understanding, urging him on but tethering him to reality. What would his own story reveal? What redemption could emerge from this courageous unveiling? Each confession became a stepping stone in a complex journey toward healing, both for him and his students. The air shifted, thick with a mix of uncertainty and hope. Jack debated how far he could push his own narrative, knowing this moment could either pave the way for breakthrough or lead to yet another retreat into silence, but as the tension knitted tighter, he felt a flicker of determination sparking inside him. The next session awaited, one that would compel him to delve even deeper into the ramifications of their shared vulnerabilities. Would he continue down this challenging path of self-discovery, or would he falter? Only time would tell, and he knew the stakes were high. The following week, Jack stood in front of the mirror assessing his reflection, a man forged anew. The last session had been a turning point. He had peeled back layers of his past that he'd kept hidden, establishing a remarkable bond with his group of teenagers. What had initially felt like a burden, the need to share his father's struggles, had transformed into an unexpected opportunity for connection and empowerment. As he prepared for yet another meeting, he was filled with anticipation rather than dread. This time, he would focus on guiding the teenagers in transforming their narratives into actionable goals, allowing them to harness their experiences to paint their futures. He had spent countless hours drafting materials that resonated with their stories, eager for their reactions and insights. Arriving at the community center, Jack noticed an unmistakable energy buzz in the air. The kids were mingling more freely than before, laughter punctuating the space. Their smiles and glances conveyed a growing ease in each other's company, creating an environment infused with trust and authenticity. "Hey everyone," Jack called out, enthusiasm carrying his voice. "Today, we're going to take a brave step forward. We've talked about our stories, now, let us discuss where we want to go from here." The room quieted, eyes turning toward him, and he felt a surge of confidence flowing through him. With palpable excitement, he guided them through an exercise called Mapping Your Aspirations. He encouraged them to connect their past experiences with future aspirations, bridging the gap between struggle and achievement. Jack wove his own narrative into the discussion, highlighting how confronting his father's addiction had catalyzed his professional resolve, transforming pain into purpose and resilience. He watched as they crafted vision boards, tangible representations of their dreams filled with colors and images that whispered of hope. With each success they unveiled, Jack felt a profound sense of pride. Lily's vision board, which started with a simple depiction of her joy intertwined with her struggles, showcased ambitions of becoming a counselor to help others. Imagine that, to inspire others through her own journey. As they shared their reflections, Jack couldn't help but feel validated in his own transformation. The hesitant man who had initially grappled with the idea of mentorship now stood as a beacon of courage and strength. The walls he had erected over lifetimes were being chipped away, piece by piece, building a new foundation of self-acceptance. "By sharing our vulnerabilities," he said, conviction punctuating his words, "we forge connections that empower not just ourselves, but those we strive to help. What we've built here is a community, a safety net for growth and understanding." He felt a wave of pride wash over him as his gaze swept across the room, landing on each smiling face filled with newfound determination. These teenagers were ready to take their narratives and turn them into action, laying out pathways toward success. The session concluded with heartfelt feedback, and Jack was surprised to hear Lily share her perception openly. "Jack, you've created space for us to acknowledge our pasts without being ashamed. Thank you for showing us that we don't have to stay confined by what happened to us. Instead, we can redefine our futures." They wrapped up, and as he prepared to leave, Jack caught Lily at the door. "Hey," she said shyly, "I've been thinking, can I share your story with my classmates? I feel like it could inspire them too." Her words struck a chord within him. This was validation of his journey and acknowledgement that he was not only succeeding as a mentor but inspiring leadership in others. "Yes, absolutely," he replied, feeling a warmth bloom inside. "We're all in this together, and it's your story to share too." That evening at home, Jack reflected on the monumental transformation that had transpired, not only in his life but in Lily's and the other teens. He had conquered his doubts, established his position as a father and mentor, and grounded his influence in authenticity. Jack realized a profound truth: his journey had only just begun. He committed to writing a blog, sharing both the stories and struggles he had witnessed in mentorship, providing resources for others seeking to connect. He felt empowered now, not as a divided CEO managing from a distance, but as a man fully engaged with the threads of his life, weaving them together beautifully and authentically. Jack slept soundly that night, knowing he had stepped into his role, a cycle of growth fueled by both vulnerability and purpose. He had transformed the weight of expectation into a foundation for future leaders, a legacy built on authentic connections. This moment marked the turning point he had long sought, a personal triumph that underscored the indelible strength found in the human spirit. As he closed his eyes, he understood, this was not merely an ending but the start of a life dedicated to mentoring others, fostering resilience, and transforming narratives, a legacy he would build upon one story at a time. The future glistened with possibilities, and for the first time in years, he felt a solid confidence in the direction of his life. Now is your moment. If you enjoyed this transformative conclusion, you need to subscribe to the channel immediately to not miss more exclusive emotional stories that inspire personal growth. Leave a like now to tell the algorithm to share this journey further. Comment your thoughts on Jack's journey and how it resonated with you, and make sure to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering conclusion. This is your chance to support authentic narratives of triumph. Don't wait even one more second to take action.